Hello, Caleb. Papa is here, and I've got Spider-Man here, here, and here. We want to tell you a Spider-Man story. Would you like to hear it? Well, here it is. It's the very first Spider-Man story ever. And the opening scene shows Spider-Man swinging through the air with a criminal in his arms. He says, though the world may mock Peter Parker, the timid teenager, it will soon marvel at the awesome might of Spider-Man. All right, here's Spider-Man, and we see Peter Parker with the shadow of Spider-Man in the background. If you like costume heroes, confidentially, we in the comic magazine business refer to them as the long underwear characters, and as you know, they're a dime a dozen. But we think you may find our Spider-Man just a bit different. Well, these are Peter Parker's high school buddies, and they don't think much of Peter Parker. One fella says, "Say, gang, we need one more guy for the dance. How about Peter Parker over there?" Flash Thompson says, "Are you kidding? That bookworm wouldn't know a cha-cha from a waltz." Well, you know, Papa wouldn't know a cha-cha from a waltz either. But here's Liz Allen. She says, "Peter Parker, he's Midtown High's only professional wallflower." And so here's poor Peter. He's stuck off by himself, but pretty soon he's going to be more impressive when he becomes Spider-Man. Let's find out how that happens. This will be the story of how Peter Parker became Spider-Man. Peter Parker overheard his classmates making fun of him, and he says, "Someday I'll show them," sob. "Someday they'll be sorry that they laughed at me." But he's on his way to a science exhibit, experiments in radioactivity. It's open to the public. And so let's go to room 30. A few minutes later, Peter Parker forgets the taunts of his classmates as he's transported to another world, the fascinating world of atomic science. The scientist says now for a demonstration of how we can control radioactive rays here in the laboratory. But as the experiment begins, no one notices a tiny spider descending from the ceiling on an almost invisible strand of web. Here comes the spider. Zzzt, a spider whom fate has given a starring, if brief, role to play in the drama we call life. Look, he gets caught in the atomic rays. Zzzt, and something amazing is about to happen to this spider. Accidentally absorbing a fantastic amount of radioactivity, the dying insect in sudden shock bites the nearest living thing at the split second before life ebbs from its radioactive body. Ow! The spider bites Peter Parker, and he cries, "Ow!" A spider, it bit me, but why is it burning so? Why is it glowing that way? See, it's turned red from the radioactivity. My head, it feels strange. I need some air. The scientists kind of chuckle. They say, "Looks as though our experiment unnerved young Parker. Too bad. He must have a weak stomach." "What's happening to me?" asks Peter. "I feel different, as though my entire body is charged with some sort of fantastic energy, and he walks out into the street without looking. Should never go into the street without looking, because honk, honk, a car might be in the street. Wrapped in his thoughts, Peter doesn't hear the auto, which narrowly misses him until the last instant, and then, unnoticed by the riders, he unthinkingly leaps to safety. But what a leap it is! The driver says, "That was one egghead who won't daydream anymore when he crosses a street." "You can say that again," says the passenger. "But look, Peter Parker leaps way up high, and he grabs hold of the wall while his books fall to the ground." "What's come over me?" asks Peter. "I'm scaling this wall just as easily as I can walk." And he's climbing up the side of that building. "Mommy," cries the little boy, "look at that man walking up the side of a building." "Well, Caleb, if you saw a man crawling up the side of the building, you'd call attention to it too, wouldn't you?" "I think so." But the mother says, "That's the last horror movie I take you to, young man." His mother thinks that he's only imagining things. "It's incredible," exclaims Peter. "I reached the roof in just a few seconds." And then he reaches out and grabs a pipe, and he says, "What's this?" "I crushed this steel pipe as though it were paper." All of a sudden, Peter Parker is super strong. It's the spider. It has to be. Somehow, in some miraculous way, his bite has transferred his own power to me. And so Peter Parker has the strength, the agility, and the climbing power of a spider. I can walk down this cable as effortlessly as the spider itself can glide along its web. Look at him crawling upside down. I've got to have time to think. I've got to plan what to do with this unbelievable ability which fate has given me. And so we see Peter Parker walking away, and we see him through an innocent spider web. But we know that something amazing is about to happen to Peter Parker and the superhero world. I can't wait to see what happens next. Look, Peter Parker made himself a costume. This is the Spider-Man costume. He says, "I'll need a name." "Well, I guess Spider-Man is as good as any." "Looks pretty good if I do say so myself." "Well, I think so too. I'm surrounded by Spider-Man in his costume." "So they laughed at me for being a bookworm, huh? Well, only a science major could have created a device like this. Look, he's created web shooters. He can shoot webs, and he can use them to swing around places and then wrap people up. With some strong liquid cement at the end, I can pull myself up anywhere with my little web, and my costume is thin enough to wear unseen under my street clothes." Okay, world, better hang on to your hat. Here comes Spider-Man. Well, what's Spider-Man gonna do when he comes? We'll find out. As we see Spider-Man walking away, we read, "A lean, silent figure slowly fades into the gathering darkness, aware at last that in this world, with great power, there must also come great responsibility." That's an important word to remember. With great power comes great responsibility. And so a legend is born, and a new name is added to the roster of those who make the world of fantasy the most exciting realm of all. And of course, that's Spider-Man. What's Spider-Man gonna do? Well, he's gonna fight villains. Let's see who his first adversary is gonna be. All right, here's his first adversary, the Vulture. He flies. And this story is called Duel to the Death with the Vulture. And so we're just kind of getting a little glimpse of what's to come. The Vulture flying through the air and Spider-Man grabbing him by the leg and ready to fight him. The most colorful superhero of all, Spider-Man. His name makes the underworld tremble. But there is one who does not tremble. What fantastic power can the Vulture have, which makes him so sure he can defeat Spider-Man? For days, a new and ominous danger has menaced the vast city of New York. No man knows where he'll strike next. No one can cope with this awesome threat. Without warning, without the slightest sound, he strikes. Look, see the shadow of the Vulture over this man with the briefcase. This is the Vulture, and he swoops down and grabs the briefcase. The man cries, "It's the Vulture! He stole my briefcase with a fortune in bonds. Help!" And the bystanders say, "I've read about him, but I never expected to see him. I didn't believe it. I didn't think he existed. It's impossible. It can't be. How can he fly without a sound, without any effort? He's more like a gigantic bird of prey than a human." And in the executive suite of the powerful Jameson Publications, Mr. J. Jonah Jameson is on his usual rampage. We hear him say, "I want to devote the next entire issue of Now magazine to the Vulture. He's big news. Everyone wants to read about him. But keep printing stories about Spider-Man also. I'll never rest till that dangerous menace is destroyed." So J. Jonah Jameson thinks Spider-Man is a bad guy. That's not true, but it'll take a while for Jameson to figure it out. And then Jonah asks, "Is this the only photo we have of the Vulture? What's the matter with you men? What am I paying you for? The public wants to see him." His employee says, "But Mr. Jameson, nobody can get pictures of him. He's gone before any photographer can get to him. We have only an artist's drawing." "No more excuses," says Jonah. Oh, sorry. Hang on. "No more excuses," says Jonah. "Get me pictures of the Vulture, or I'll get some new editors." Meanwhile, in a nearby high school, Peter Parker overhears an interesting discussion as the young science major performs an experiment in the lab. Flash Thompson says, "Boy, I'd like to see a close-up photo of the Vulture." Liz Allen says, "A photo of the Vulture would be worth a fortune, but nobody can get close enough to snap one." Peter Parker thinks, "Say, that's an idea. I never thought of it before. Magazines pay big money for hard-to-get photos, and I know how to get them." "Here, Bookworm," says Flash, "take a look at what's going on in the outside world. Or can't you read anything but scientific formulas?" "Very funny," says Peter. "At least my brain isn't muscle-bound like that fat head of yours." And Peter thinks he'd be grinning outside the other side of his mouth if he ever suspected that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. Now, where was I? Oh, yeah, thinks Peter. I'll bet Spider-Man could get close enough to the Vulture to take some pictures that would pay off. I can use the dough, that is, the money. "Parker," says the teacher, "I don't expect you to ignore a delicate experiment right in the middle while you pore through a lurid picture magazine. Parker, pay attention." As soon as school ends, the excited teenager rushes home to his Aunt May and is delighted to learn. "Here, Peter dear," says Aunt May, "this miniature camera was your Uncle Ben's. I'm sure he'd have wanted you to have it." "Thanks, Aunt May," says Peter. "This little gadget is going to be a great help when it comes to paying our bills." And so, look at that. He's got a camera now. Now he can take some photographs. Then in the privacy of his room, Peter Parker changes into the most dramatic costumed figure of all, that of Spider-Man. And he thinks, I'll figure out a way to attach the camera to my costume and then test it out. Meanwhile, in a carefully prepared hideout on the outskirts of the city, we see the Vulture. He's reading a magazine. He says, well, well, so the Park Avenue Jewelry Exchange is moving $1 million worth of diamonds to their new offices across town. It shouldn't be hard for the Vulture to get his hands on those gems. They'll probably be expecting me to try something, but I'll get those gems in a way that no one would ever expect. Even Spider-Man wouldn't have a chance of stopping me. After making certain he is not observed, the Vulture darts from his hiding place atop an abandoned silo in Staten Island, just a few seconds from the heart of Manhattan. Now, he thinks, for the first part of my ingenious plan. Seconds later, atop an apartment house where he had been checking his camera, Spider-Man's amazing spider senses pick up a strange sensation. Something coming through the air, but making no sound. It can't be a plane. Not noticing the powerful figure on the rooftop, the Vulture sweeps past. He thinks they'll never figure out how I'm going to steal those diamonds. I've got everyone completely baffled. No one has yet discovered how I managed to fly with these artificial wings. But over here, Spider-Man thinks, what luck! It's the Vulture. And then the Vulture tosses a stone with a message. He says, I'll toss some messages where they will do the most good. The first one is for the Jameson Publishing Company. So he tosses a stone. My next message is for the radio network. Nothing I like better than taunting my enemies. Finally, one for the police chief himself. I'll be gone before they have a chance to read them. And so look, from the inside of the building, we see this stone with a message. It's the third message that he sent. And the message says, I shall steal the diamond shipment from under your noses, signed, the Vulture. This policeman says, the Vulture has never failed to carry out a threat yet. But the police chief says, we must go ahead with the transfer of diamonds. We can't let the city think that one criminal can make us change our plans. I did it, thinks the Vulture. Now that I've warned them, my triumph shall be even greater after I've seized the gems. Spider-Man thinks if these photos of the Vulture come out all right, they should be worth a small fortune. And look, he's snapping photos of the Vulture in flight. But in his eagerness to get a close-up picture of the Vulture, Spider-Man carelessly kicks a loose brick. That sound the Vulture heard. There's someone on the roof behind me. I've got to move fast, as only a Vulture can. There, thinks Spider-Man, but look, he's got his back turned. I've got everything adjusted perfectly. Now hey, where'd he go? Look, the Vulture swoops around and comes at Spider-Man from the back. Well, well, so Spider-Man himself is on my trail. Good. It will be amusing to finally face a foe worthy of my mettle. And he kicks him from behind. Spider-Man says, ugh. Having been momentarily taken by surprise, Spider-Man is stunned and dazed by the Vulture's brutal onslaught as his merciless foe flies toward a nearby water tower. So look, the Vulture is carrying an unconscious Spider-Man. The Vulture thinks this is almost too easy. Once I drop him into the water below, he'll never bother me again. With Spider-Man out of the way, the city will be mine. And so look, the Vulture is poking Spider-Man into this door, into a water tower. Now that I have disposed of that temporary interruption, I'll carry out step 2 of my master plan. Meanwhile, inside the tank, the shock of hitting the cold water, instantly revives the powerful Spider-Man. The Vulture somehow trapped me inside this water tank. Well, I've only myself to blame for being so careless. And Spider-Man is splashing around in the cold, cold water. I'll just shoot my web toward the top, but oh no, the ejector is empty. I forgot to refill it since I used it last. I've been so busy with that camera. I've got to try something else. He has no webs to shoot. That would make it easy to pull himself out of trouble. What's he going to do now? I can't climb to the top. It's too wet and slimy even for me to get a toehold on. But I sure as shooting can't stay afloat here much longer. And so he has no webs to shoot. He can't grab hold of the side. I don't know how he's going to get out of there. Not a pleasant choice. I'll either drown or suffocate in here. Wait a minute. What's wrong with me? Why don't I use my head? I can get out of here, but how? My muscles are far stronger than an ordinary human's. There's one little trick that only the Spider-Man can perform. And so look, he plunges deep into the water. He spins around. He says, all I've got to do is reach the bottom, squat down, and prepare to hurl myself upward. Like this. And he leaps through the water, up into the air. I did it. He reached the top and he found the open doorway. Says, I may not be able to fly like the Vulture, but my spider strength hasn't let me down yet. My luck is still holding out. Here's my camera. Sure is unbelievable how the Vulture manages to fly so swiftly. I'd like to figure out how he does it. Later in his room again, Peter Parker, still in his costume, says, the pictures came out fine. Now whom do I sell them to? Jonah Jameson, the publisher of Now magazine, hates Spider-Man. I'd get a kick out of making him pay good money for my pictures without knowing that the Spider-Man is the photographer. Originally, I designed my Spider-Man costume just to give me some color so I could make money as an entertainer. But if I'm really going to be a secret adventurer, I've got to make some changes. First, I'll add an extra web fluid capsule so I always have enough spider webbing on hand. I'll fashion small containers in my belt to hold additional web fluid cartridges. Then when I get paid for my pictures, I'll buy a special miniature camera to secretly attach to the belt buckle. There, the whole contraption fits under my shirt where it's out of sight and doesn't interfere with my movements. And now I've got a hunch I know the secret of the Vulture's power of flight. I'll just work on a little device which may come in handy next time we meet. And so look, Peter Parker, the science major, knows how to invent handy things to help him fight villains. And so he's working on a little device. I wonder what that is. I bet we'll find out soon. Long hours later, he says, phew, that was tougher than I expected. but it's finished now. I won't know if it'll work till I try it. But right now, I'm going to get some shut-eye. Well, we don't need shut-eye. We want to read what happens next. The next day, J. Jonah Jameson receives an exciting phone call. What's that? You've got some exclusive photos of the Vulture that you want to sell? Well, don't waste time talking. Get over here right away. Joe, have them stop the presses. And Betty Brant, the secretary, says, sorry, Mr. Jameson cannot see anybody right now. He's having an important conference. So beyond the glass doors, we see Jonah saying, these pictures are sensational. Great. But how did a kid like you get them? Sorry, sir, answers Peter. I'll sell them to you on condition that you never ask me that question. Okay, you can have your little secret. It doesn't matter how you got them. The point is, these pictures will make the next issue of Now a sellout. I'll issue a check to you immediately. And remember, Mr. Jameson, says Peter, I don't want my name used. You can merely give credit to a Now magazine staff photographer. Sure, my boy, sure. And if you get any more great pictures, remember to give me first crack at them. We're always in the market for sensational photos. In fact, if you ever get a picture of that public menace Spider-Man, and then Peter thinks, brother, wouldn't you be surprised if you knew? The next day, as school lets out, Peter's classmates say, come on, Peter, we're all going to watch them move the diamonds from the Park Avenue Jewelry Exchange. We're hoping to get a glimpse of the Vulture. Peter says, you don't really think the Vulture would dare to try anything with all these police there, do you? Flash says, don't be scared, bookworm. We'll protect you. Gosh, the whole area is cordoned off. And look, TV cameras, newspapermen, police. It's like a carnival. The Vulture would be nuts to try anything with a crowd like this around. This is one time he won't make good his boast. Peter says, it is hard to see how the Vulture would have a chance at the jewels under these conditions. There are police on every roof and an armed helicopter flying overhead. I'd better make myself scarce. If I have to change to Spider-Man, I won't be able to do it in the middle of this mob. And so he puts his hands in his pockets and walks away. Flash makes fun of him. Look, gang, little Petey is chickening out. I guess the excitement is too much for his delicate little self. Peter's classmates would sure be surprised if they knew the truth about Peter Parker and Spider-Man. Minutes later, the valuable jewelry shipment starts its cross-town convoy, accompanied by patrol cars and the police whirlybird following above. The policeman says, I wish the Vulture would make a try for those diamonds. We'd nab him for sure. Well, be careful what you wish for. This policeman says, yeah, but he won't show. He's too smart for that. It's all clear. Start bringing the jewels out. So the armored truck has arrived, and this policeman says, not a sign of the Vulture. He knows he wouldn't have a chance. The sky is clear, except for our own chopper up there. Looks like the whole thing was a false alarm. But stay alert anyway, anyhow. With a character like the Vulture, you never know what's going to happen next. Ain't it the truth? Look at this manhole cover at their very feet. Watch closely. Look! The manhole cover pops open, and there's the Vulture. He's not coming from above. He's coming from below. He says, gentlemen, you are so right, and now I'll take those diamonds. So he grabs the briefcase from below. He's taken them completely by surprise. The man with the briefcase says, the Vulture, but how? The policeman says, we expected an attack from above. Before the startled officers can fire, the wily Vulture plummets back underground, dropping the manhole cover into place above him. And then he thinks, I'll be miles away before they can even lift that manhole cover, and they'll never know which of these twisting tunnels I'm flying through. And so he's flying underground through the sewage tunnels. What an amazing idea! Who'd have thunk it? Well, the Vulture is pretty clever, even if he is very evil. A short time later, at the other end of town, a triumphant Vulture decides to leave his underground lair as dramatically as possible. And so look, he flies out of the tunnel. This fella says, look, the Vulture, he just flew out of the subway tunnel. The Vulture says, this will give the fool something to talk about for years to come. And look, we're still talking about it. How simple it was. It worked like a charm, thinks the Vulture. Now I'll have vanished over the rooftops before the police can even begin to converge at this point. And so now he flies back up into the air, which is his proper domain. Meanwhile, learning what has occurred, Peter Parker manages to find a deserted alley, and then moving with blinding speed, he thinks he did it. The Vulture fooled everyone, even me, but I'll find him. If I can get some new pictures of him now, I'll be able to name my own price for him. So he tears off his outer clothes, and there is his Spider-Man costume. All he needs to do is put on his face mask. The best thing I like best about being the Spider-Man is scaling these sheer walls. I don't think I'll ever stop getting a charge out of it. So he climbs up high, and when he gets to the roof, he thinks, now if the Vulture is anywhere in the area, my spider senses will detect him. Ah, I'm beginning to get a tingle now. What a break. There he is now. It'll be a cinch for me to follow him, using my web to swing from building to building. But as luck would have it, the Vulture chooses to look behind him at that very second, and he thinks, I better check to see if any police helicopters are. What the? It's Spider-Man. He's free and he's following me. He's too dangerous. I've got to get rid of him for good. First, I'll execute a fast loop-the-loop, which will put me behind him. And so he swerves up and around to the back, and there he is. He's behind Spider-Man. Spider-Man thinks, holy smoke, where'd he go? He couldn't have flown away so fast. Wait, I feel vibrations in the air behind me. The Vulture must have doubled back behind me somehow. Forewarned by his fabulous spider sense, Spider-Man wheels about in time to avoid the full impact of the Vulture's swooping dive. But one powerful wing sends the colorfully clad figure toppling from the edge of the roof. No, you don't. This time I'm ready for you. And so he shoots out his web and entraps one of Vulture's legs. What? Thinks the Vulture. He hit my foot with that accursed web of his. Pulling himself up hand over hand, the mighty Spider-Man manages to get within grabbing distance of the Vulture's ankle, and then, got you, says Spider-Man. You fool, says the Vulture. Here in the sky, we're in my element. I'll shake you off and be rid of you for good. Talk is cheap, Birdman, responds Spider-Man. This time I'm sticking. And now he thinks to test out my little gadget. Here's hoping it works. So he clicks it on, and that did it, says Spider-Man. You're out of control. I've beaten you. What did you do? Asked the Vulture. I can't stay aloft. You'll kill us both. And now the Vulture is falling down. Spider-Man is too. What's going to happen? Speak for yourself, mister, answers Spider-Man. The sky is my element as much as yours. Just watch. And so Spider-Man jumps clear, and he says, I can always save myself by shooting my web at a nearby building like this. As for the Vulture, he'll manage to break his fall by spiraling down, but he's going to have a tough time ever using those wings again. And so Spider-Man clings to the wall, the Vulture spirals down slowly, and here comes the police helicopter. They must have sighted us when we were battling. This is my chance to get some exclusive pics of the capture of the Vulture. Take her down, Charlie, says the helicopter pilot. We were right. It is the Vulture. And he's fallen to the ground. He thinks, I can't get up. The wind is knocked out of me. What'll I do? He'll be captured is what he'll do. The policeman says, if this doesn't take the cake, whoever thought we'd be able to capture the Vulture so nice and easy? What happened, fella? Did you have a tailspin? Please, no jokes, says the Vulture, and behind him, Spider-Man is taking pictures. These pictures should be prize winners. That does it. Now to get these shots to Jameson and ask for top dollar for them. Let's go, Birdman, says the policeman to the Vulture. We'll get you to headquarters and find out once and for all how you managed to fly the way you did. Spider-Man says, if they asked me, I could have told them. The absence of noise gave me the clue. I suspected he had discovered a way to harness magnetic power. That's why my gadget made him fall. It's an anti-magnetic inverter, and it worked. And so, science helps Spider-Man to have victory over enemies. Science and knowledge are always helpful. Then as the next day dawns, Jameson has got another check for Peter. He says, tell me, Parker, are you a magician? How does a teenager like you manage to get pictures that our best staff photographers would give their eye teeth for? Remember our deal, Mr. Jameson, answers Peter. That's my secret. Now, if you don't want the pictures, are you out of your mind? With pictures like these, I can almost stand living in the city with Spider-Man. Take a bonus and go out and buy yourself some Twist records. All right, the Twist is an old dance song. Peter says he thinks I'm just a typical teenage kid. Good, that's the way I like it. And this wad of bills he paid me is what I like also. So Peter's going to take the money and he's going to spend it wisely on a new camera, and he'll help his Aunt May around the house. Upon reaching his home, he says, Aunt May, this money means you're not going to have to worry about anything again. I paid the rent for a full year, and tomorrow I'm buying you the newest kitchen appliances you ever drooled over. Oh, Peter, exclaims Aunt May, I'm so proud of you. It's just like your Uncle Ben always said, you're the most wonderful boy in the world. While in a lonely cell, the Vulture has a slightly different opinion of our hero. He thinks, I wouldn't be here if not for that accursed Spider-Man, but sooner or later I'll get free and I'll develop a flying power that he cannot overcome. And then, Spider-Man, it will be my turn to gloat. But in the meantime, we can gloat and be very proud of our friend Peter Parker, the Spider-Man. So that was a long story, and I hope you enjoyed it. But believe me, Spider-Man and I have a lot more stories to tell. If you want to hear the stories, just let Papa know, all right? I love you very much, Caleb. Have a good day. Bye-bye.